Welcome back. So we have episode 20 of the Nola Taoist here. And it is pouring, raining outside. I absolutely love it. That's one of my favorite times when it's raining. But the rain is releasing. And so oftentimes people are holding on to emotions or thoughts and feelings and all of this. The rain releases all of this. So if people are sad and gloomy and it starts raining outside, then it comes out to the forefront. What's inside comes outside. So the rain is like releasing and clearing, because after you release, then you are clear, hopefully, unless you do something to wind it up. But if you're sitting in your home, maybe you won't be aware of this, but if you, let's say, work in a restaurant and you're going about your day, you feel good, whatever, and you're on your way to work and it starts raining, and then you get into the restaurant, and let's say they have windows that you can see outside, and so you can see the rain, and that kind of outside light starts to dictate a little bit of the feel of the environment inside the restaurant, and then you start to interact with your coworkers, and you can see some people are moody, or maybe some people are angry, or whatever. But the rain starts to release this. Oh, and I'm going to have some tea on that note. Oh man, I love it. So today I have a black maple espresso tea. Maple espresso black tea. So according to the Taoist calendar, we have entered the season of autumn, and actually in correlation with the rain, autumn is a season of releasing, and right now we're in the beginning part of autumn, where we're not exactly yet to the point of starting to release and let go of things, but that'll come very soon. Right now we're still kind of like hustling up, making any last hurrahs of plans and things we wanted to do during the summer. So what will start to come about now is that we'll begin to reflect on the year that has passed so far, that, from the spring all the way up until the autumn, and, see things that we wanted to do and things that we did do and things that maybe we should do or need to do. So this idea of reflection kind of shows us where we're at before we start to decide what to let go, because in the spring we start building, in the summer, it's full blown and we're everywhere and we're doing so much and we got so much energy. And then in the fall it starts to decrease. And it's not exactly a decrease, but instead of it pushing out into the world, as the fall comes, we start to let go of the outer world things and start to transition towards the path inward to the depth of our spirit and our soul. And in the winter time being the most deep time of the year. So whereas you have the summer solstice is the most outward time of the year, the winter solstice is the most inward, internal time of the year. I'm going to have a sip of tea here. So along with what I was saying, I'm drinking black tea. Why is that relevant? Well, it's fall time and autumn. So the fall has a correlation to the lungs. This is when the lungs, what's present there comes out the most, per se. So if I hold on to a lot of sadness and grief, then that's going to come out now in the autumn. It's also the time of year that the lungs could be the weakest, or they could be built up to be strong. But whatever is there, weakness or strength, deficiency or excess or balance, that will be the most present to you at this time. So the lungs have a correlation to the emotion of sadness and grief. And on the positive end, they have a correlation to integrity. So the lungs, lung chi is sticky. It's like it holds on to things. And to warm up the lungs and work them is a way of releasing and letting go of things, a way of clarity. And in Taoism, the metal element has a correlation to Wu Ji, the infinite space. Yeah. So there's also this idea of judgment that correlates to the lungs and the metal element and the season of the fall. And there will be a lot of judgment going on. The lungs correlate to our po, or our ego, as we like to say. So that has to do with judgment. The ego judges things. It judges things. It judges ideas. It judges places. It judges other people. It judges ourselves. So there will start to be a lot of judgment going outward. But if you would like to maximize this and make the most effective of it, what I recommend you do is that you take that judgment and put it back on yourself. So instead of judging other people, you need to look at your habits. You need to look at your time management skills. You need to look at how you treat other people. You need to look at how you treat yourself. You need to look at your health regimen. You need to look at your diet. All of these things. Now, if you notice something from another person, they give you an inspiration, well, great. But to use this most appropriately, trying to judge other people and say, oh, he has a poor diet, or he's a bad person because he does X, Y, and Z, or he's lazy, or he's always late, or he's this, or he's that. Turn that judgment inward on yourself. And what are your shortcomings? And what do you do good? Praise yourself for what you do good and acknowledge what your shortcomings are, and then work to improve on those things. It's definitely time to clean up your diet. And along with diet, I'm drinking, again, I digress, of course, because there's just so much depth of information to discuss, but I'm drinking black tea. So the lungs, they correlate. I've talked about the emotions and these types of things, but now let's talk about spices and herbs. So the lungs correlate to the flavor of spice. So ginger, black pepper, cayenne pepper, red pepper flakes. Lemon isn't spicy, but the zing of it is good to open your lungs. So at this time of year, especially, the energetic quality that runs with the lungs is dryness. And so I recommend that you start your day off with some hot water, a little pinch of Himalayan pink sea salt or Celtic salt, and a little squeeze of lemon, maybe a half a lemon or a quarter, whatever works for you. Okay, but put some lemon in there. Your lungs will open up and start to breathe real well. Some people even do like a touch of cayenne with their lemon and salt. But you can start to integrate some more spice into your food. Whereas when we were directly in the summertime, the fire energy was blazing, roaring, to add spice would be too much and problematic. But now we're starting to dry out and cool down and actually not be warm anymore. So this element of spice will actually heat us up and keep the chi flowing, keep everything to go back down, because the energy is up and out immensely during the summer, and in the winter it starts to come down some. But you're still kind of in this transition period where it's still wanting to go up. So we start to help it to go down with our warm water and our spices, our black pepper and our ginger and our cayenne and these types of things. So black tea is actually really good for the autumn. Yes, there is a small amount of caffeine, but it's really good because of what's in it that opens up your lungs. So that is why I'm having black tea. I do thoroughly enjoy the flavor of maple, and who the hell doesn't love a good espresso? Oh, that's delicious. Um, so if you do something like Shinyi, now is a great time to do Pichuan. If you do any of the internal like Shinyi, Bagua, Tai Chi, now's a great time to do any type of opening exercises that open the lungs and the chest, whatever movements you might be doing, uh, this type of whatever your system is, but anything that is going to open and close the chest area, especially condensing and expanding the lungs, and especially rounding the back and getting that good stretch in the back because the summer has this really extremely yang like this, and you want to balance that with some yin going into the fall time. So these are some things that will kind of help transition into the fall. Um, Drink plenty of water because the water gives hydration to the lungs, and then the lungs will send the chi back down. Whereas um, the liver and the stomach helps send the chi up. Uh, and we've been cultivating them and working them throughout the season so far. Um, the lungs and the heart, now you have summer and fall, work together to create the true chi. So the liver and the stomach send the chi up, and then the lungs and the heart create the true chi as the lungs send the chi back down to be used throughout the body. Um, it's called zone chi, the true chi. So you want to drink plenty of water to help flush the chi down and start to root you and ground you again, and also clearing any stagnation or blockages you would have in your lungs. So today, tea time, of course, we're doing now with a little bit of free flow. Um, I really love the field of health and wellness, and I see the body as one unit. Holistic wellness is a common term that people love to use. For many years, at least a decade and a half, my focus was on fighting and physically pushing my limits, doing two-finger push-ups and one-legged pistol squats and lots of sit-ups and pull-ups and leg exercises and all of these things. And I still enjoy this hard training. But as I get a little older and kind of get into my true nature as a healer, that becomes more of my focus. And as I damaged my body over the years of really, really hard training and fighting and a lot of fighting, um, I started to begin to look for ways to rehab and rebuild my body. And then, of course, as you get older, your body doesn't perform the same as when you're young, but you can maintain that vitality, excuse me, through health exercises. And that's where I started to look into acupuncture and all these things. So within the last 5 years or so, I've been really focusing on the healing side of things. um, and of course, with that comes a whole new set of knowledge. Instead of looking at a pressure point to, we won't go there, but to hurt or maim an individual, you now look at a pressure point and how would you rub it, or would you dispel it, or would you tonify it? What needs to be done at that point to restore balance and harmony to the body? Uh, Breath or mind, right? Or a combination of all three. Yeah. Because we're made up of the body, the breath, and the mind. And when you bypass all of that, you get to the soul, the spirit, yeah. So we're going to discuss verse 20. And the topic today is going to be external martial arts versus internal martial arts. So external versus internal. Okay, so I'll start with external. The beginning of my training was mostly external martial arts, doing things like Taekwondo or Okinawan style of karate, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, grappling, Jeet Kune Do, these types of things, yeah. Kali, Eskrima. So all of these things that focus more on the external side. And not that some of these arts don't have internal depths, but their main focus on external. So they look to maybe stretch the body, do the splits, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, all these things to strengthen the body. And the way that these exercises strengthen the body is that they contract and put attention on the muscle, or the tendon or the ligament or whatever the case, and they put attention and it gets harder and harder and harder and harder to essentially lock the chi in there, and that's if they're even aware of chi and they're working with their breath, because some aren't, some just tense and they don't breathe at all. So that way, the way that it functions with your body, it puts a lot of tension in the body, and it makes you, it can make you more tense. But you focus on things like strength, like a physical muscular strength. You focus on things like speed. You focus on things like a variety or plethora of techniques and which one's better than the other one. You focus on let's say, the chaining of those techniques, but you try to be superior through stamina and conditioning, physical muscular power, and then speed. So that's the external. And when you do external enough, some systems have internal to where the external transitions to the internal. But the internal side of things is more about releasing, or song as they call it in Tai Chi, relaxing to release. So you look to release the muscles of the body and stretch and release the tendons and the ligaments and the fascia, and to free the energy of the body and then circulate that chi or that energy. You look to circulate that, and you look to develop your power through, let's say, the movement of chi or release of chi, or putting chi into an individual or taking chi out of an individual. And these become the methods of power. Your stretching becomes about relaxation and release, stretching the ligaments and the tendons and such to relax and release them, not to just physically stretch them, but stretch them to open them. Yeah. And you start to rely on feeling and your timing, but that timing comes from feeling. It's not a outward visual focus of what another person is doing or where their hands are. It's the feeling of the energy, the chi, their physical, energetic, spiritual body moving towards you, and feeling that and where it's going to land. Which is where people get into trainings of doing things blindfolded, like people do Wing Chun that make it a little more on the internal side. They do like a blindfolded Wing Chun, a blindfolded Chi Sao. Or you can see things where people do blindfolded fighting and these types of things, because it develops your awareness. So you start to rely more on the feeling and awareness of inside you first and foremost, is the feeling inside of you. And then you start to go to the outside between you and the other person, and then you start to feel the other person too, and then you have the three. So Neil Ripsky said it in a way that I really like. You have your sphere, the sphere in the middle, and then their sphere. And you look to control or conquer those things. So that's in the realm of fighting. But in the internal arts, also, there's this quality of healing. So you could be super physically active, and it's a great thing. But from a health standpoint, you're much healthier working the internal arts. And I really don't want to go there, which one's healthier than the other. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other, but the internal arts have a little bit more of a focus on the health of the body and than developing yourself spiritually, a spiritual evolution, if you will. And that's more the focus of the internal art, whereas an external art is more focused on really developing like a physical machine in a certain way, but it sometimes disregards spiritual practices or health and wellness practices. Sometimes you push things to the limit and not in a balanced way and not in a health way. Maybe you really work the muscles, but you don't really work the tendons, which is actually where the power comes from. But maybe you really work the muscles, but not the tendons of the body, right? And you really work the muscles, but the fascia is super wound tight and not healthy, right? So again, I'm not here to really say that one's better than the other, just to compare and contrast the differences between the internal and the external styles. The external styles really focus on just the physical growth of the body. And like I said, not always about the balance. Some of them do. Some of them have a well balanced routine that they do some stretching and they do some physical exercises and then they do some technical and then maybe they do a little bit of sparring. They kind of balance those four elements out. When I was doing very external arts, there was, when I did more external styles of kung fu, that was kind of the way it went. So, but when you look at the internal styles, like I say, it's more on opening the body and clearing the body and stretching tissues in the fascia and releasing and spiritual growth and evolution, putting space in the joints, lengthening the spine, feeling and awareness, more on the inner world. So that's a little difference between them. Now, I always say if you have a really good external system, and there will be some internal practice there at a higher level, and if you have internal practice, a really good internal system, it will be physically rigorous on the body, and it will push and develop the physical body. It's just in a different fashion because outside and inside aren't separate like we think they are. They're interconnected. In fact, separation is the biggest mistake of the common person, the average world, the everyday person. They have these ideas of separation between themselves and other people, or between themselves and places, or between themselves and food, or what they're eating. There's no separation. We're all connected. It's energy. The energy that's inside my body is connected to the that's outside my body. I'll give you a perfect example, and I won't even go into the realm of chi or energy, but just your breath. The air that's around you, if it's hot and you breathe in, you're putting warm air into your body, then you breathe out. There are methods to cool your breath, but if you're not focusing on that and you're focusing on a method that heats up your breath, then you're going to put hot air back out. But if you're in a cold environment, you're going to take in cold air, yeah, and you're probably going to put cooler air out, right, than in the middle of the summer, unless you're trying to heat your breath up. But my point is that the air that's outside is going to go in your body. There's going to be an exchange, and then what's inside your body is going to go outside your body. So the inside and the outside of your body have this link via the air, if you will, and you go in and out. But if you want to get down to a micro cellular level, the air outside touches your tissues, which are made up of a bunch of cells, and it has a reaction with that air. Just like when you heat up and you sweat, your pores open, and the water comes out and the air goes in to cool you down, right? So just as you can physically warm up and sweat and open your body, you can make that connection from the outside all the way to the depths of the inside your organs, and from the inside all the way outside. Because if you really want to get technical, your cells are just layered and smushed on each other. So if I'm breathing deep enough, I can breathe the oxygen in and out of the organs in my body. And you can raise your core temperature or lower it. You can look at people like Wim Hof, who developed the Wim Hof method. who is sitting in a tank full of really extremely cold water, but yet raise his body temperature. A guy who could go climb a mountain full of snow with a pair of shorts on and a headband and like some shoes or some, what do they call it, the little rackets that help you trek through the snow so you don't sink in the snow, help you walk up the snow. Anyway, whatever they're called, it's irrelevant. But the point is, he can heat up his body in that cold, right? Or he can go in the middle of the desert and without hardly any water, run a marathon and cool his body down and not overheat. So when you understand these things, how to control the breath, how to heat the breath and cool the breath, how to warm the physical tissues or how to cool the physical tissues, you get to a point where you're like, yeah, okay, inside and outside, there's no difference. And you want to think more about inside and outside. Notice when you're in a good mood and you go in an environment, let's say you go into a work environment and people are not happy because they have to be at work, and let's say it's a poor work environment, so they're really upset about the way things are going in the work environment. Watch how that bad mood is going to spew over and affect you. And then watch your appetite change. Watch how you're not hungry. But before you went to this work environment, you were relaxed and you could eat. And then you go to this work environment, now you're wound up and you're angry and you're sad and depressed or all these things, and you're not relaxed and your tissues are all wound up and you can't eat, you can't relax. You eat food, but then you feel bad when you eat it. You don't even really digest it. You don't get the same nourishment out of it when you're sitting at home and you're relaxed and you make this lovely meal for yourself. You love the things you're about to eat, and then you relax and take it and you eat this food with love. Anyway, I'm really digressing here. This espresso tea is getting good. So I'll rein it back in here because I love this stuff and I can talk about this for weeks and days and months, etc. So if you have a really good system, external and internal, will take you from one to the other. You will go through yin and yang and back, and then you will get to a state of emptiness. Yin being taking in internal, yang being pushing out external. If you want to look at it and think about it that way. The balance of the two. You need the inside, you need to work with the inside, but you also need to work with the outside. I can be happy inside, but if I don't know how to help make people happy outside, well, then they're going to turn to be not happy. Okay. If I can be strong inside, but I don't know how to help others be strong, then they're going to be weak, right? And they won't have any grit or perseverance. These are like mental ideas, but the same thing works on the physical body or the emotions. So there is no separation. Separation is the biggest illusion of the world. Okay, let's talk about verse 20. So verse 20 starts off, abandon learnedness and you have no vexation. So we kind of hit on this last time, but I don't think there's anything wrong with learning information, but there comes a point where you are so learned and this is this way and this is that way that you stop actually learning because you have this idea, well, I learned this and this is the truth and this is exactly this. Well, yes, but things are always changing and nothing is so concrete as we try to make things. I look at a form of someone doing Tai Chi and they say, well, when you breathe out, you do this with the breath. And when you breathe in, you do this with the breath. And then you hear another person talk and they tell you to do the exact opposite. And then you hear some people talking and they say, just try to breathe naturally, whatever feels comfortable and good for you. And those people probably have a little bit more experience and wisdom. People want to make it a right way. Well, when I push my hands away from my body, I breathe out. And some people say, no, when I push my hands away from my body, I breathe in. It increases the power. No, maybe not. Some people can breathe out and push out, and some people can breathe in and push out, and both generate great amounts of power. They're just different power, but they can both be effective. So this idea of like things are this one way because I learned it this way and that's what it has to be. Well, no, that's not true. it's good to learn things and to continue and maybe even teach them the way that you learn them for the sake of history and passing them down. But things are often much more complex than we make them. Much more, I don't want to say complex, but much more uh, deep than we make them. There's a much more breadth and wide array of perception. Right or wrong, not good or bad, just such as it is. The yes compared with the yeah, how do they differ? So whatever, that's why she said yes, or yeah, or right, yes, or yeah. Kid's still going to get his ice cream, so you look at the deed of what is done, and you kind of sometimes, and it's a way of removing the emotion from it, right? Because whether you're happy or you're sad or you're joyful or you're miserable or you're angry or you're emotionless, the deed still gets done. The deed is the deed. But the good compared with the bad, how much do they differ? Again, this goes back to the deed. I'm going to use this example that some people may really feel a certain kind of way about what I'm about to say, but someone breaks in your home and you shoot them and kill them, you murder them, okay? Or people are going to get caught up in the definition of the word murder, but you kill them. Let's just say that. They die. Their life ceases to exist. Now, we're going to take a soldier who goes to war for his country and meets another soldier on the battlefield and then shoots and kills him. His reasoning for shooting the person might be different than the person in the home, or it might be the same. We don't know. But if some people would deem a soldier killing another soldier, let's say the USA killing an Iraqi soldier, as a good deed. Or some people would deem it as a bad deed, okay, but the deed is still the deed. But let's say, okay, so now I'm going to throw another example in here of someone robbing someone and murdering them when they robbed them. So if you murdered someone and robbed them, most people would consider that a bad deed, a bad way of doing things. You killed them because you wanted to steal from them and take things. You took their life. It's such an awful, tragic thing. But if someone broke in your home and you killed them, some people would say that's justified. And then some people would say, oh, well, an American soldier killing an Iraqi soldier, that's a good thing because, a very patriotic person would say that's a good thing because you killed that Iraqi person that was going to, come here for us and bomb us and did bad stuff to us. But I ask you, out of those three examples, we say one's justified, one's good, and one's bad. So one we don't really put emotion to. We just say it's justified. One we say is good, and one is bad. Are these things very different? Because at the end of the day, one human being, one life, still took another life. So when you look at the deed and remove all of the emotion and the mental construct of these things, there's a deed, and that deed is that a life was taken. One person took the life of another person. So the good compared with the bad, how much do they differ, right? If what the people dread cannot be made dreadless, there will be desolation. Alas and verily, there will be no end of it. So I will liken the example of going to work, and maybe the servers dread doing the side work at the end of the night, rolling the silverware or polishing silverware, folding napkins, resetting tables, sweeping the dining room, and cleaning the coffee and tea station. I'll just use these examples. So if these things that everyone dreads can't be made dreadless, there will be desolation. Alas, and verily, there will be no end of it. Which means that every time you go to do the silverware, if you don't like doing silverware, the staff doesn't like the silverware, polishing silverware, and I hate it, and then they're gonna be miserable while they do it, and it feels like it's never gonna end. The time just drags on because you're not enjoying doing this. But if you're working with a couple coworkers that you really like and you guys really don't like Posh and Sober, but you can talk about some things that happen in your life or make jokes about some things that happen during the night, well, then the time seems to pass faster instead of you paying attention to disliking the silverware. You're not paying attention to joking on events that happen during the night and laughing and having a good time with your coworkers. And before you know it, it's over. And then you don't hate doing the silverware so much because now it's a good time of like joking, laughing with your friends. The multitudes of men are happy, so happy as though celebrating a great feast. They are as though in springtime ascending a tower. I alone remain quiet. So this alludes to a person that is in the Tao that's not necessarily looking for this happiness, and they don't see a feast as this happy thing of a feast. They just see it as the act of eating food. Maybe some food is more pleasurable than others, but it's just an act or a deed, another thing. So it takes this. It goes back to non-duality. It takes this celebration or joy out of things. Alas, like one that has not yet received an omen, I am like unto a babe that does not yet smile. Forlorn am I, oh so forlorn. So when a baby's first born, they don't smile right away. Their mirror neurons have to see you smile and then learn to smile through doing that and then build the nerves and the neural pathways to then smile. If you're waiting for an omen, an omen's a thing telling you this is about to happen. So I am like unto a babe that does yet not smile. And again, that goes back to the idea of like just neutrality, being neutral about something. So it's doing this thing, experiencing it, but not putting a good or a bad or a right or a wrong to it. You're just neutral. It appears that I have no place whither I may return home. So you can take this a couple ways. The Tao is constantly changing. So I'll use an example of someone a wanderer, a gypsy. And some people might say gypsies in the Tao because they just live in the moment of what is. If they're hungry, they're hungry. If they're sad, they're sad. Say that a little better. If they have food, they have food. If they don't have food, they don't have food. Maybe they'd like to have food, but it is what it is, and they don't have food. And they wander around and travel. And one place is not their home because the whole world is their home, if you will, right? They're existing in the world, but they don't put this idea of this is my home and I'm only safe here. And if I go outside, I'm not safe. No, they're safe, or they're the same level of safeness here or there. They may like certain places over other places, but it is what it is. It's all part of their home, part of the earth. The multitude of men all have plenty, and I alone appear empty. So the people who have the most, they have to work and struggle and whatever else to maintain what they have. But when you're empty, well, you can always gain. You can always fill with new. And if I go to work looking for a certain experience, because I'm this upbeat, happy, joyful person all the time, then I will need to do things to try and maintain this, even if I'm sad. But a person that's empty will experience happiness or sadness or whatever is present there in the moment. Alas, I am a man whose heart is foolish. Ignorant I am, oh so ignorant. This kind of alludes to like a little kid who isn't so mentally developed and just lives in their heart, and you could easily trick them by telling them, I'll give you an ice cream if you shovel all this snow. It might take them an hour to shovel that snow, but the kid knows that they'll enjoy the ice cream. So they'll shovel that snow for an hour, which is an amount of work that's worth way more than an ice cream. And they'll eat that ice cream really happily. So a kid's heart is foolish. They don't know the way sometimes that people trick other people or use them or et cetera, et cetera. but they're happy, genuinely and I don't even, let's not even go to happy, but just genuinely present. The child's genuinely present. Common people are bright, so bright, I alone am dull. Common people are smart, so smart, I alone am confused, so confused. Through the education system, this plus this equals you being smart. But when you're not educated, then you're quote unquote dull, but you can have common sense. But sometimes having common sense, like a street criminal has a lot of common sense, but people would call them stupid because they're committing crimes which could cost them years in jail and time and et cetera, et cetera. So some people would say that that's stupid. But they can be really quite clever, but you might call them dull, not very bright. Desolate am I, alas, like the sea. Adrift, alas, like one who has no place where to stay. And that's what I was saying, like a gypsy might be someone considered like the Tao. They're just kind of meandering and wandering through life, being present and open to the experiences that are there, not looking or searching for an experience without desires, if you will. The multitude of men all possess usefulness. I alone am awkward and rustic too. I alone differ from others, but I prize seeking sustenance from our Mother Earth. So the multitude of men all possess usefulness. They can change a tire. I'm just going to use a very gender stereotypical idea of changing a tire, building a house, mowing the lawn, all these useful man things. But someone who's in the Tao, I alone am awkward and a rustic too. You don't make conversation smooth and easy. You're not the most gentleman, but you are realistic. I alone differ from others, but I prize seeking sustenance from our mother. So you're someone who's in the Tao is different from others. You're not seeking worldly, physical things. Their world doesn't revolve around getting a book or a weight or a decoration for their home or a rug or a new car or a great job. But they do prize sustenance from our mother. So they do prize the energy of the earth, being in the mountains or being in a beautiful, fresh, clean air, open area with the multitude of bright green grass. Being present in nature, having the experiences of being on the sea versus being on the land. These are this is the sustenance from the mother. Yeah. The rain and the sun and the moon and the stars, the constellations, the planets. This is the sustenance from the mother, if you will. It's the way of taking in. And again, all of these are just words. But there's experience that need to be had because the real Tao is a Tao that can't be spoken. And with that being said, Gombe. Cheers. Until next time.